Thank you, Dr. Pana. All right, I'm about to open the floor for comments. You already see a mic right there for your use. But may I just make a comment on process? If you have a point to make, 1 or 2 points to make, that it would be very nice if we could limit ourselves to 1 to 2 important points, and then a direct question to one of our speakers. Of course, please also introduce yourself before making your comments. And I now open the floor for any comments or questions. We have we have received a lot of inputs, no? From anybody? Sir? Nepo.
Well, just very quick comments to Dean Raul's comments. Just 3 points. I will not expound on them, to be quick. The first is on the current situation. I think in the framework paper, what we are saying is that we are not happy with the outcomes, and we believe that many of these outcomes were policy-induced. So that's the first. I will not be elaborating on that. The second is, when we talk about IP, we do not mean simple protection. And we take the challenge of presenting an IP policy, and we feel that it is a developmental. In other words, it's not a one-time blueprint that we will be presenting. In fact, it becomes an outcome of a process. That could include an exchange rate correction, for example. But just briefly, if I may refer to an article also which came out in the world, in the business world by Professor De Jos just a fortnight ago on completing the value chain in agriculture. He talked about a number of things, including amalgamation, research and extension, etc., to address certain bottlenecks in getting the production chain working, and a number of them requires intervention. In fact, he said that among these would be either big business or the state, or I forgot another one he mentioned. And the third point is that we don't believe the state to be static. In other words, you might view it in a weak state frame at the present time, but we precisely, many of us are advocates in the belief that the state is not static. That includes having a state in the conception of a coalition, as you mentioned, in terms of moving forward. So just those 3 points.
Dean Fagalla, would you like to respond?
Let me tell a story. I'm a senior citizen, so I have lists of stories. I now avoid graphs and tables. And this is about industrial policy. But this happened not in the Philippines, but in Taiwan. In early 50s, there was a huge debate in Taiwan about where they will locate their exchange rate. And there was a guy, he's one of my idols, his name is E.C. Chan. He was actually a monetary economist who was a professor at some US universities who returned. And his position was we should set the exchange rate so that it favors domestic production, consumption of domestic goods, as well as exports of domestic production. And his opponents were making very almost solid, very solid arguments from the viewpoint of economics. And this was the argument. Our exports today is 90% sugar and rice. All of them governed by quotas. Imagine, zero elasticity of demand. So if you devalue the currency, you are going to help these sugar and rice producers, but you're not going to improve exports at all. And I thought, so I saw the argument the first time, I said, this is formidable. But he turned the tables around by saying, this is not static. This is dynamic. He said, the reason why our exports is 90% rice and sugar is because our exchange rate is wrong. And you know what he said? And then they asked him, what will be our exports if we set the exchange rate aggressively? And he said, I don't know. You can't come to me and say, it's gonna, that industry X or industry Y will grow. But what he said was, if you do what I say, these exports will be crawling out of the woodworks. Now let me tell you a sequel to the story. The sequel to the story is the Philippines. I had the good fortune of talking to a denizen from Binondo, old guy. So I asked him about the retail trade. He was in hardware. The retail trade in Binondo in the 50s. And he said, I remember something very specific, that my relatives in Taiwan started to write me letters asking me what they could export to the Philippines because the new Taiwan dollar was very weak and the peso was very strong. So he said, well, we scrounged around and I finally ended up sending them lock sets. Lock sets. In the hope that they would reverse engineer it and then construct and then send to the Philippines. And then he smiled and he said, they sent, but they were very bad quality. But they were cheap. Cheap as hell. And the middle class bought anyway. And now, lock sets from Taiwan are first class. Okay? So, yes, the idea of dynamic is correct. But dynamic can go either upwards or downwards. Remember, Marcos started out very well and then ended up very badly. So, I agree with Roger here. The problem is that, as Shunil Jose said it, we became a state before we became a nation. Beautiful saying. Beautiful saying. And what he meant was that we are, at the moment, not a single community. We are incoherent as a community. And what Roger was saying is we should aim for that coherence. If you are coherent, you might, it doesn't mean that you are always correct. You might actually be wrong. Because coherence have been used in history badly. Like the wars that allowed the Germans to capture Holland, or Japan to capture Bataan. But at some point, you will get it right. But if you are incoherent, you will never get it right. And even if the right thing is in your face, you will still get it wrong. So thanks, Roger, for that call for collegial, whatever, consensus.
All right, thank you, Dr. Fabel. Dr. Lim has to leave in a few minutes, and he has asked for a few minutes to respond to some of the comments. And I also encourage that if anybody has particular comments directed, particularly in response to his presentation, we have about 15 minutes left with him. But I'll let him. Dr. Lim, I'll take this comment first, okay? And then, yes, sir. And then we'll hear from Dr. Lim once again. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Gladstone Cuarteros from De La Salle, Philippines. I also teach at De La Salle University, Manila. Yeah, my question is for Professor Lim. You said that the economic growth has been expansion of industry and also domestic market. Now, if we're going to continue, because there's a slide, right? So in which industries are we going to focus in the next few years so that we keep expanding? Also, because in the economy, there are different industries we know and sectors. Where should government be the leader? In what industry should government be enabler? In what industry should government be a regulator? Things like that. Because we know a government should have different roles in the different sectors of the economy. Yeah? That's...
Thank you, Gladstone. Dr. Lim?
Okay, sorry, I forgot. Oh, sorry. I forgot to tell you that I have to go to Makati for another meeting. So I asked the organizers to go at 4 o'clock, but it's past 4. But okay, so first some of the reactions for the FIES and APIS. I'm not a statistician, but as far as I know, Roger's comments were correct. Between the two surveys, the income component is more similar than the expenditures. Expenditures, there's a wide difference between the two. Very small, very few questions in APIS compared to the large set of questions in the FIES. However, I think in the number of samples, there are about 20. I forget, I just look at the NSCB website for the poverty estimates when they printed the results of the first semester 2012, 2013, and 2014. 2012 was FIES, 2013 and 2014 was APIS. Now, FIES had about, say, 20,000+ samples. The other two in APIS had about 4,000. Ganon. I mean, very different. I don't know what the statisticians say. Will the averages that come out in the poverty estimates of 20,000+, is it comparable to 4,000+? Of course, within the range of error, it's still the same. But anyway, these are some, I didn't say that they are not comparable. I'm just posing some objections from the PIDS and from Ben Jokno, okay, on this, whether the two can be combined. But either way, but it is crucial to settle this point because the elasticity that they come out with uses this combination of these two surveys. When you come up with a large elasticity like that, you have to make sure that the surveys are compatible and comparable. And if PIDS itself, which is a government agency, objects to this, we have to have a dialogue on this actually. Okay, so, and those results were basically on saying that 2020, 2030, you eradicate poverty, etc., etc. These are based on scenario building, assuming the elasticity is going to be 2.4 for the rest of the ages. This is going to be what the poverty rate is. That's a very easy thing to do, actually. But the question is, we have to find out what are the determinants of poverty. That's more difficult. Is CCT the one? If you say CCT is the one that reduces poverty, how do you know? There are so many things affecting poverty. Climate change, the Yolanda, suddenly poverty increases in one area. there's so many things affecting poverty, no? There's a global financial crisis. People get laid out of work. And maybe if poverty is improved, that's probably because employment is improving, no? Last few years, but not so much. So poverty is not improving, not so much either. So there are so many things affecting, and you cannot just, from scenario building, say it's CCT, right? Without any econometric proof. Okay, so, but I'm not saying it's not CCT. I'm just saying, where's the... Okay, so, remember, China was able to reduce poverty so drastically, so wonderfully, but then we are still criticizing China for the large income distribution, for Tibet and Xinjiang, the large poverties there. So it is not just the numbers, please. Don't look at poor people as just numbers or elasticities. Where are they? Are they dying? Do they have enough freedom, right? Like in Xinjiang, and are they in ARMM? Okay, so this is the way to study poverty. I think, and this is that's why we don't want to say things so reductionistly as many of us tend to do. Okay, so that's enough said. Okay, on the first point. Now, if Deng Xiaoping is neoliberal, then I don't know what happened. He is a communist who cracked down on the Tiananmen democracy fighters and killed a lot of them, actually. So he is a dictator in the sense, even in his economic, he said, I want export zones in the south. You have to do it. Then you have to do it. If not, I will kill the party members who are against me. Right? That's neoliberal. Okay, so anyway. Strong state. Okay. Okay, the misconception. That's why we should not be reduction. We don't reduce people to one phrase. Industrial policy people are industrial policy people. They have different acts, different things. They disagree with each other. They are not just plain with protectionists or tariff increasers. That's a very reductionist point of view, please. And we tried to say that so many times. We want them to talk to the business sector and agree with them which are the areas that you think are the most promising. Let's go there together. But you should not lobby for your own self-interest. That's the way the state should do. That's the way it was done in many of these countries that were successful. Not necessarily dictatorial. And please don't, that relates, please don't mix weak and strong state to democratic versus authoritarian or dictatorial. Please. Norway, Sweden are very strong states. For those who are pro-American, the US is a strong state. And China, on the other hand, is also a strong state. So please don't mix up strong states with democratic, dictatorial, authoritarian, or else you will go into the Duterte type of thing. We have to kill Lee Kuan Yew, we have to kill all the bad people, and then become a strong state. Okay? Let's not be reductionist, no? Of course, in economics, we abstract and say that everything is constant except this. And that probably, but we have to get out of that mode and say, of course, but things are not constant. After you do the analysis, you go and say, oh, this is just for the math of it. So that we can have first differential and second differential and all that. But we have to look at, our assumptions correct? What if all the assumptions are not correct? Rita, of course, is the advisor for Raul, so Raul is the mentor of Rita. And I don't want to attack her when she's not here. So I don't want to say anything about the car program, except that she told me it was not really an automotive, it was not a car industry plan that really wants to promote a Filipino car and sell it to the Filipino consumers. Is there a Filipino car? Except for the Tamaraw, which is or the jeepney. I don't think she's promoting that. She is actually promoting car parts and assembly, and many of them are, as I said, maybe some people walked out when I was talking, but as I said, many of these are top export things. Many of the car parts, some of the electronic parts are really gaining ground in the Philippines. So she's, I'm not defending her, so let her defend herself. Okay, so, but it's not an attack on us, an attack on Tita. Okay, so, interest rates, what's this, what am I writing here? Investment rate. Investment, of course, you have to remember, investment is very important, macro. But remember, it is residing in the industrial sector. Most of the investment is either construction or manufacturing, or electricity, gas, and water. Very little in mining, and that's a controversial point. Okay, so you have to talk on the supply side, the demand side is investment, the supply side you have to talk where is it being done. Okay, and again, the question, I want to take the last question first. It's very difficult for me to answer that question because precisely there is no money in this project. I mean, hardly any. We're not getting any money for this talk. We're getting, I think, they're going to give us some gifts later on. Okay, so, but if we had money, we would go into the various industries. That's why we're dialoguing with PITA. Not because we want everything that she's doing, we like whatever, but we have to get some feel, no? We have to talk to the people involved here. And not a reductionist thing, no? Not, you know, everything's bad, everything's good. You know, it's not like that. Okay? Governance is not like that. That's why we have prepared this. And Marcos. Okay, so weak state, strong state. No way. Not dictatorial, strong state. We want the private and mass sectors, the civil society, to go with the social cohesiveness, political cohesiveness, makes a strong state. It's one step forward. Not dictatorial, please. Okay, we don't want to go back to that. Okay, so, and it's consistent. I mean, for social cohesive, politically cohesive state is consistent with what you want to call good economic strategizing, good development. If you're a spouse of industrial policy, it goes with industrial policy. If you hate the word, don't use the word, please. Okay, because you put your own definition to it. Don't put your own definition to it. We have another definition, so let's not use the word, please, anymore. Let's not use industrial policy. Let's just say economic development. Okay? Everybody agrees? Okay, everybody will agree. Okay.
Joseph?
Yes? Okay, I'm done.
Finally, all right. Next we will hear from Professor Mendoza from the UP, from UP Los Baños.
I hope Dr. Lim will listen a few minutes of my talk before he get out of the room. And I hope, I do not know, I don't want to assume that I'm the only one directly working in the S&T fields in this room. To begin with, I'd like to point out, when Dr. Lantican was the Undersecretary of the OST, he made an assessment about our technology and expressed his study in what he called technology index. By the way, Dr. Lantican is also an academician, a national scientist also at the OST. He called it technology index. He said at that time, in the 1990s, technology index-wise, if USA is 100, Japan is 87. Guess what is the Philippines TI at that time, 1990s? He said, he wrote in his paper, TI is equal to -1 for the Philippines. I talked to him a few weeks ago and asked him, in your assessment, what is TI for the Philippines now, sir? Ted, sabi niya, nag-improve ba naman ng konti? Technology index-wise, Philippines now is 0.3. So if you relate it to 100, it means we are 333 years behind the United States. But if you listen to the speech of the RIP Lee Chao, my son happened to download his speech. According to him, our level of S&T is pre-medieval era. So anyway, going to that, Dr. Pavili is claiming that we have industrial policy. Well, of course, perhaps we can always claim, but in several of my talks, I do not know why they did not invite me here also. You know, the elements or components of industrial policy that we are, or that all the speakers were talking about, concerns only the social and political aspect of industrial policy. They never mention about science policy, technological policy, innovation policy, which are very essential components of industrial policy. Okay? What more about, you know, the priorities of the government in terms of R&D or S&T? Okay? We have a term what we call gross expenses on research and development. UNESCO prescribes 1% of our GDP to be invested on R&D. Do you know how much is our GERD, gross expenses on research and development? The late Chancellor Saloma, in his paper, the former Chancellor Saloma said our GERD is equal to 0.12. Incidentally, I wrote one paper. I read one paper. Said, "Oh, it improved a bit. It's already 0.2% of our GDP." Okay, so how can we develop as a country when we are not investing on R&D? Okay, that's why more than 20,000 of our S&T personnel are living out the country. Okay. What is our ratio of S&T personnel relative to our population? UNESCO is saying that we should have about 340 S&T personnel per million population. What is our present status? We have only 78 S&T personnel per million. So how can we develop as a country when we don't have personnel? Okay? Now, going back to the number of PhDs that we are producing in the various state colleges and universities, including UP, we are graduating less than 100 PhDs in a year, whereas there are more than 1,000 lawyers that pass the bar every year. So I stop from there.
May I get any reactions from the panel? It is not late, Chancellor Saloma. Former. Would anybody want to respond? Dean of Reneo?
I think there's some confusion about the term industrial policy. What we are discussing here is industrial policy with a capital I and a capital P. But sometimes we get confused. There are so many policies related to industrialization, so we call them industrial policy. Let me just read to you a definition given by UNCTAD on industrial policy. It is a concerted, focused, conscious effort on the part of government to encourage and promote a specific industry or sector with an array of policy tools. And then, in the case of the World Bank, it considers industrial policy as, and by the way, in the case of the World Bank, there's a lot of discussion of industrial policy in recent years, in contrast to the situation in the 1980s and 1990s. So the World Bank considers industrial policy as government efforts to alter industrial structure to promote productivity-based growth. And maybe a very concrete example of industrial policy is what's happening in Guangdong or today in China. You have Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and other industrial cities of the province being transformed to develop higher types of industries, and so they're phasing out these producers of garments and some very labor-intensive industries, so they can move towards the interior provinces. But in the meantime, because of industrial policy, what Dr. Mendoza mentioned, the government is mobilizing science and technology in support of industrial restructuring and in support of, well, they're also supporting the new industries that are setting up higher, industries with higher value added services or products. Now, it's similar to what Singapore did in the 1980s. You see, in the 1970s, Singapore was a, well, as I mentioned earlier, it was a shopper's paradise for rich Filipinos in the 1970s. In the 1980s, as Lee Kuan Yew said, Singapore could no longer be a cheap producer of garments and so on. So now what China and Lee Kuan Yew did, they encouraged increases in minimum wages. And in the case of Singapore, they have this National Wages and Productivity Council. They encourage the research on how industry restructuring could take place, and then also research on what types of training and skills developments can be developed. They have this skills development fund, which is considered a model in the world. They collect contributions from different companies, but they return the money in terms of training and assistance to industries that are restructuring, helping them upgrade. And then finally, they have a DOST, some kind of a decentralized technology, that also do research on how that restructuring can take place and then upgrade. Now, I agree with Raul when he said that Philippines is not export-oriented. My discussion is we pursued the wrong export-oriented policy. We did not transform the Philippines to become an export-oriented manufacturing base. And that's why we have unless you will consider the export of manpower as part of export orientation, that's a different matter. Now, with regards to this industrial road mapping being undertaken by the DTI, I was a participant there. And in fact, I was even a facilitator in 2011 and 2012. This was organized by Dr. Joseph Yap and Cristobal. But the problem is it's now 2015, and we have not seen any concrete industry road mapping. They asked for the industry association, why don't you come up with your industry road maps? But the question is, they just simply ask the different industry association to come up with industry roadmap. But what is the role of the government? This was never defined. And then, should this road mapping be a forever thing? I mean, you see, in real industrial policy, you don't have to come up with a big number of industries that you will map. The important thing is you define the overall strategy of how you can build up your base. That's why, well, we don't have enough time in our paper to discuss what is the direction. But to me, personally, I said we cannot go back to the old style of, you see, in the 1950s, one reason why the Philippines grew rapidly was because of Miguel Cuaderno. In the 1950s, we didn't have tariffs. Because of the balance of payments crisis of 1949 to 1950, what the government did was impose import and foreign exchange controls. But in the hands of the first governor of the central bank, Miguel Cuaderno, he changed this, he transformed this into part of an industrial policy. He said, dollars, which were very important in the importation of machine and other equipment, would be allocated only to new and necessary industries. And that started the process of establishment of so many industries. The crisis in industrial directions happened in 1961 when Dado Macapagal, the father of Gloria, embraced the IMF and came up with this the control policy. Again, on theory, when you devalue the peso, you would become competitive. But it was devaluation without any direction, without any preparation, and what happened? Many industries collapsed. But in the meantime, when because of the devaluation, I think from 2 pesos to $1 to 3.50 to $1, Macapagal got worried about the collapsing Philippine industries. He substituted for the import and foreign exchange controls a system of universal tariff protection. That's when and again, this tariff protection program, unlike in our neighboring countries, were instituted without any clear framework. For example, in our neighboring countries, when they institute tariffs, they would indicate when would the tariffs last. It should not be forever. And then when you enjoy certain incentives from government, you should show some signs of productivity, and that's why you are being rewarded. That is industrial policy. But here everybody got protected in a very general way. That's why to conclude, if we have to move forward, I think, like in the college, in the social work and community development, you start from where you are. I believe the two biggest employers in the country, call center and BPO, and then electronics. I think the challenge is to scale them up. Similar to Norio's recommendation, why don't you scale up the electronics? Why don't you scale up the auto parts? But right now, we don't see what are the details of this new program on the auto part. How do they will scale it up? It seems they're just projecting expansion in the market, and therefore, they need some fiscal incentives from the government. That is not in industrial policy.
Thank you, Dean O. Because of our time constraints, I will be only able to entertain one more comment after our next. So please, let's have a race for the mic. The next commenter is Mr. Rick Reyes of Freedom from Debt Coalition.
Thank you. This is addressed to all the discussants. I noticed that there is one major index or indicator that was not touched by the speakers, but that has caught the attention of the world very much since the New York crash in 2008, the Wall Street crash, and that is inequality. And by inequality index, I don't mean just the Gini coefficient, which measures income inequality, but other measures or measurements which gauge the quality of access of the population to sources of wealth, meaning to say capital, land, education, technology, etc. And this is very important because this runs across the economic, the social, and the political. For instance, in the economy, way back in, I just want to go back to Gini coefficient. Sometime in 2009 it was measured, and the Philippines was shown to be the most unequal in Southeast Asia, and one of the most highly unequal in the world. And sometime in 2009 or 2010, there's a Pitt study which showed industry control or monopoly, a 3 to 4 firm control of every major industry in the Philippines. And that study shows a very highly monopolistic economy. That badly compares to a national objective of developing small and medium-scale industries in all these realms. No? And how about what happened to a centerpiece of our national objective, a constitutional mandate for land reform? How about the cohort ratio in terms of education? I think the statistics still show that for every 10 children entering grade 1, only 1 finished tertiary education. And then we go to politics. It's not just a question of surrender. It's not a question of surrendering freedoms. It's to whom freedoms are placed inside the state. It's a question of, so what kind of state is that? I mean, it's a question of how inclusive is that state. And our state still belongs to, you know, a very small group of dynasties, of elites. And of course, why should we surrender our freedoms to that kind of state? But if that state is inclusive, where there is a very ample space or even effective place proportional to the population and to the nature of the various components of the population, then that question will not be raised. So I go along with Dr. Lim's advice that we should not confuse strong and weak states with democracies and dictatorships.
I'll entertain one more commenter, please, before we finally allow our speakers to have the final word. Clearly, it seems that there really has to be a series of RTDs, a longer series of RTDs. Rest assured that in the IP team of AER, we are also interested and we are also striving to, well, me personally, I'm trying to come up with the paper on technology policy, perhaps, hopefully, fashioned after Sanjaya Lal of UNCTAD, the late Sanjaya Lal. And another portion of our project is actually to localize industrial policy, to actually go to a local area and to actually identify specific interventions that are needed in that specific municipality. Yes, sir.
I'm Joseph Francia from National Union of Bank Employees. I'd like to ask Dr. Panao, would you say that a parliamentary form of government would be the best for the Philippines? So we remove term limits, you have it, you know, you have the ministers, etc. You know what it is, no? That's it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
As for the first comment, let me just specify that inclusivity is a difficult concept, and probably depends on where you're coming from. You have a definition of what inclusiveness means, and I'm not really saying that we should reduce definitions to, like, say, strong state dichotomy. All I was raising which is why I chose the word you may. It's a question. There are trade-offs, and I'm coming from a social contract model. The state protects you, provides you with services and all you need. In return, you have obligations to the state. You know this. I mean, this is classic social contract theory. Now, so the second question about whether a parliamentary system works for the Philippines. I will not give a definite answer, but here's what I will lay down. Yes, in a sense, you deal with term limits under a parliamentary system, because under this system, your legislators would be your executive as well. And their basis of power is based on your confidence, the confidence that you impose on them, right? So if you like them, they may extend their term. Not quite like your, in a presidential system, where the president, executive, and all other officials serve on a fixed term basis. Term limits per se is a problem because of policy stability. You cannot come up with policies that you can expect to work on the long run and be stable because you're limited by the time you are going to implement it. 3 years, 3 terms. There are advocates, even in UP, especially at the College of Public Administration, and I think Professor Ko knows this too well, that are espousing a parliamentary form of government. It is not possible under our present constitution, you know this, and it will require more than an amendment because it involves structures of government. So that means we have to revise our constitution if ever we will espouse that.
All right. Dean Fabello?
Let me just say that concentration indices in a small country like the Philippines, they don't mean anything. You have to first say, of what industry? If it is an industry where there's high fixed cost, very high fixed cost, and the market is small, you necessarily can support only 1 or 2. So, blanket statements like there are only 3 or 4 that have market shares together of 70% or 90% means nothing. You know Intel inside, Intel has about 80% of market share on microprocessors. Why is it that it has not gone through severe scrutiny? The reason is because people believe that Intel's dominance is technological rather than political or rent-seeking. Now, with respect to the trade-off between inequality and poverty, here, if I look at China, inequality has worsened in China more than anywhere else in the world in the last 20 years. But they also graduated more than perhaps 600 million people out of poverty. To me, that is a fair bargain. I won't think at all about inequality if I am pulling millions and millions of people out of poverty. To me, that is a fair bargain. And the Chinese authorities allowing dollar billionaires to flourish is okay. Now, there is a statement in the US Constitution which says inequality is allowed for as long as it is productive. There is such thing as productive inequality. I don't care that some person has 30, 50 times more money than you have, as long as he employs people and give them jobs. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Now, I don't care for the generation. I love Piketty simply because he's suddenly decided that inequality should be the share of the richest 10%, not this average generation, which I think the age of Kuznets is gone. I think the age of Piketty is here.
Or perhaps the age of the Palmer ratio, which is the bottom 40 to the top 10%. So, personally, I like that better. Anyway, just to close the forum, again, I would like to assure everybody that this is one of a series of RTDs. I think this is the second or third in the series that we've already had. And AER, the IP team of AER has committed itself really to trying to further this discussion and work in this area.